Did you know that life can change in an instant? One day, you are living independently, managing your own affairs, and thinking you have everything figured out. And then suddenly you find yourself in a place you never imagined, where your freedom is limited, your world is smaller, and your future feels uncertain. At 79, I never thought I would spend 3 months in a nursing home. Like many, I believed that if I took care of myself, I would never need to be in one. But life has a way of surprising us, reminding us that we are never as in control as we think. What started as a temporary stay for recovery turned into one of the most eye-opening experiences of my life. In those months, I met people whose stories changed me. I witnessed joy, sorrow, regret, and resilience. And I learned lessons that I wish someone had told me decades ago. So today, I want to share them with you, not to frighten you, but to help you live more fully, love more deeply, and cherish the time you have. Here are 7 life-changing lessons I learned in a nursing home. Lessons that every older adult needs to hear before it's too late. 1. Loneliness is the greatest pain of aging, but it's not inevitable. Loneliness is not just an emotional burden. It is a silent ache that lingers in the hearts of many older adults. Before my stay in the nursing home, I believed loneliness was something that only happened to those who had no family or lived far from their loved ones. I assumed that as long as you had children, grandchildren, or friends, you would never truly feel alone. But I was wrong. Loneliness in old age is not simply about being alone. It is about feeling forgotten. I met people whose families lived just a few miles away, yet they had not received a visit in years. I saw men and women who once had full lives surrounded by friends, co-workers, and neighbors, now sitting in silence, waiting for a knock on the door that never came. There was a man, once a respected businessman, who now stared out the window every afternoon, hoping his children would come. There was a woman who had spent her entire life caring for others, her husband, her children, even her aging parents, only to find herself alone in her final years, wondering if anyone still thought of her. At first, I told myself that these were just unfortunate cases, rare exceptions to the rule. But as the days passed, I saw the pattern repeat itself over and over. And then I realized something painful. Loneliness is not about the absence of people, but about the absence of connection. You can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. I started reflecting on my own life. Had I truly nurtured my relationships? Had I put enough effort into keeping friendships alive? Had I made enough time for the people who mattered? The truth is, life moves fast, and it is easy to get caught up in our own responsibilities, assuming there will always be time later to reconnect. But time does not wait. One day, you wake up and realize the calls have stopped coming, the visits have grown less frequent, and the people you once loved have drifted away. But here's the part that gives me hope. Loneliness is not inevitable. It is not a fate we must simply accept. We have the power right now to shape our future. I have learned that relationships must be tended to. Like a garden, they require effort, attention, and care. The friendships we maintain, the bonds we strengthen, the love we give freely, these are the things that will keep us from fading into the background of other people's lives. So if you are reading this, I urge you to reach out to an old friend, a family member, or even a neighbor. Call them, visit them, remind them they are still important, that because one day you may be the one waiting by the window, hoping someone remembers you. And the actions you take today will determine whether that day ever comes. 2. Health is your true wealth. Protect it while you can. There was a man I met during my time in the nursing home who, decades earlier, had been the very definition of success. He had built a thriving business, traveled the world, and lived in a home most people could only dream of. He had once been strong, independent, and full of life, but now, in his 80s, he could not feed himself without help. He could not walk without assistance. He needed others to care for him in ways that would have been unimaginable just a few years before. As he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he told me something that still echoes in my mind. "I would trade every dollar I ever made just to have my body back," he said, "because without your health, nothing else matters." Before coming to the nursing home, I thought I understood the value of health. I believed I was aware of its importance, but I had not truly grasped how fragile it is, how quickly it can be taken away. I saw people who had once been full of energy reduced to needing a wheelchair to get from one side of the room to the other. I met those who had lived active, adventurous lives, now unable to perform even the simplest daily tasks on their own. Their wealth, their possessions, their years of hard work, none of it could save them from the toll that aging had taken on their bodies. What struck me the most was not just the physical limitations, but the regret. Many of them had spent their younger years neglecting their bodies, assuming that strength and vitality were permanent. They had pushed themselves too hard, ignored the warning signs, and told themselves they would rest someday. Someday never came. I began to reflect on my own choices. I thought about the times I skipped exercising because I was too busy, the meals I ate in a rush, never considering what they were doing to my body, the stress I carried for years, believing that working harder was more important than resting. And I wondered, if I had treated my health as the greatest treasure I owned, would I have found myself in the same place? Health is not just about avoiding illness. It is about preserving the ability to live on your own terms. It is about being able to walk outside and feel the sun on your face, to pick up your grandchild without pain, to enjoy a meal without restriction. It is about independence, dignity, and the freedom to experience life fully. If I could go back, I would have done things differently. I would have exercised more, not for vanity, but for longevity. I would have eaten better, not for weight loss, but for strength. I would have stressed less, knowing that no amount of success is worth sacrificing your well-being. If you are reading this and you still have your health, cherish it, protect it, treat it like the most valuable asset you own, because one day you will realize that it is, and by then it may be too late to get it back. 3. The things you own will mean nothing. What matters is who you shared them with. For most of my life, I believed that the things I worked so hard to acquire were a measure of my success. I took pride in the home I built, the car I drove, the furniture I carefully picked out, and the treasures I collected from my travels. Each possession felt like a reward for years of effort, a reminder of the life I had built. But when I arrived at the nursing home, I was given a small room with only the essentials: a bed, a chair, a dresser. Suddenly, everything I once owned was reduced to what could fit in that space. The house I had cared for, the belongings I had accumulated, the things I once thought were important, none of them came with me. At first, this realization was unsettling. I had spent a lifetime working to build a comfortable life, and now none of those comforts mattered. But as the days passed, I began to understand something even more profound. The true value of what I had owned was never in the objects themselves, but in the memories attached to them. The dining table I had once cherished was not valuable because of its fine woodwork, but because of the family dinners and laughter shared around it. The clothes in my closet had never been important for their brand or price, but for the experiences I had while wearing them. The home I had built had been meaningful, not because of its size or design, but because of the love that filled its walls. In the nursing home, I met people who had once been wealthy, who had owned more than I ever did, and yet they felt empty. Their expensive belongings had not followed them here, and now all they had were distant memories of things that no longer mattered. And then I met those who had never been rich in money, but who had lived rich lives. People whose eyes still sparkled when they spoke about the love they had given, the friendships they had cherished, the simple joys they had embraced. They had less, yet they had everything. I thought back to all the time I had spent working, worrying about finances, and chasing after things I thought would bring me happiness. And I wondered, what if I had spent more of that time with the people I loved instead? What if I had focused less on accumulating and more on experiencing? What if I had prioritized connection over consumption? As I sit here now, I no longer miss the things I lost. I miss the moments I didn't fully appreciate. I miss the conversations I cut short because I was too busy. I miss the people who are no longer here, whose presence mattered far more than any object ever could. So if you are still in the part of life where you are building and collecting, I ask you to pause and consider this. What will truly matter in the end? The things you own will one day be gone, but the love you give, the memories you create, and the lives you touch will last forever. 4. Losing independence is harder than you think. Appreciate your freedom now. Nothing prepares you for the moment when you can no longer take care of yourself. One day, you are making your own choices, moving freely, and living life on your terms. Then, suddenly, the simplest tasks, dressing, eating, walking across a room, become impossible without help. I never fully understood what independence meant until I began to lose it. At the nursing home, I saw the quiet frustration in the eyes of those who once lived strong, capable lives, but now relied on others for even the smallest needs. I met a woman who had spent decades raising her children, running a household, managing responsibilities that no one else could handle. Now, she needed a nurse to help her out of bed. I met a man who had once prided himself on fixing anything in his home, never asking for assistance. Now, he had to wait for someone to help him adjust his pillow. There is a kind of grief that comes with losing control over your own life. It is not just about the physical limitations. It is about the loss of choice. No longer being able to decide when to go outside for a walk. No longer being able to cook your own meals. No longer being able to drive to visit a friend. The small freedoms you once took for granted slowly slip away, and in their place comes a deep, unshakable longing for what once was. I never thought much about my ability to care for myself when I was younger. I assumed it was something that would always be there. I rushed through my days, never pausing to appreciate what a privilege it was to move, to make my own decisions, to be fully in charge of my life. Now, I look back and wish I had cherished those ordinary moments. The simple act of tying my own shoes, the ability to walk outside whenever I pleased, the freedom to live without needing permission or assistance. If you still have your independence, hold on to it tightly and protect it with everything you have. Take care of your body so that it can carry you for as long as possible. Keep your mind active so that your thoughts remain sharp and clear. Make decisions now that will allow you to live on your own terms for as long as life allows. But more than that, appreciate the independence you have today. Recognize the incredible gift of being able to wake up and move through the world without restriction. Take a deep breath, stretch your arms, walk a little farther than usual. Do not wait until you lose something to understand its value. Because once independence is gone, you will realize it was never just about physical ability. It was about dignity, freedom, and the power to live life on your own terms. 5. Happiness is in the small moments. You just have to notice them. For much of my life, I believed happiness was something to be earned, something that existed in the future, waiting for me once I had accomplished enough, once I had worked hard enough, once I had secured the things I thought I needed. I told myself that one day, when everything was just right, I would finally be happy. But now, looking back, I see how wrong I was. In the nursing home, I met people who had spent their lives chasing after things they thought would bring them joy. Bigger houses, better jobs, more money in the bank. Some of them had achieved everything they set out to do, and yet, sitting in their small rooms with nothing but memories to keep them company, they were still searching for something more. They talked about the opportunities they had missed, the moments they had let slip away, always waiting for the perfect time to be happy. That time never came. And then there were others, people who had little, yet radiated a quiet, unshakable joy. There was an 85-year-old woman who greeted each day with a smile, despite her failing eyesight and aching bones. When I asked her how she remained so content, she simply said, "Because I pay attention." She told me she had learned, long ago, that happiness was not in the big things, but in the small moments, the warmth of the sun on her face, the sound of laughter in the hallway, the taste of a cup of tea in the afternoon. She had made a choice every day to notice the beauty in the ordinary. That conversation stayed with me. I thought about all the times I had overlooked the small joys in my own life, too busy worrying about things that, in the end, never really mattered. The mornings I rushed through, never appreciating the feeling of waking up in my own bed, the meals I ate without tasting, the loved ones I spoke to without truly listening. Happiness was never waiting in some distant place. It was always right there, in the simple moments I had been too distracted to see. Now, I understand that joy is not something we find. It is something we choose. It is not hidden in the future, nor is it dependent on wealth, success, or perfect circumstances. It exists in the present, in the small details of everyday life, the way the breeze feels on your skin, the sound of a familiar voice on the phone, the quiet peace of sitting in the morning light with a cup of coffee in your hands. If I could go back, I would not wait for happiness. I would recognize it in the little things, in the moments that seemed insignificant at the time, but were in fact the essence of life itself. So if you are searching for happiness, stop looking ahead, look around you. It is already here in this moment, waiting for you to notice. 6. Forgiveness is freedom. Don't waste years holding on to anger. I have met people who carried anger in their hearts for decades. They held on to grudges like heavy stones, refusing to set them down, believing that their pain was justified, that time alone would somehow heal the wounds. But in the quiet halls of the nursing home, where reflection comes easily and time slows down, I saw what holding on to resentment truly does to a person. It does not punish the one who caused the pain. It does not rewrite the past. It only weighs down the one who carries it, stealing peace, joy, and time. Precious time that cannot be reclaimed. There was a man I met who had not spoken to his brother in 30 years. They had fought over something neither of them could even fully remember anymore, but pride had kept them from making amends. And now, as he sat in his wheelchair, hands trembling with age, he told me that his greatest regret was never picking up the phone. His brother had passed away years earlier, and the chance to say, "I'm sorry," was gone forever. He looked at me with eyes full of sorrow and said, "I thought I had more time." I thought about my own life, about the grudges I had held on to, about the people I had distanced myself from over misunderstandings or words spoken in anger. I had believed for so long that my resentment was justified, that forgiveness meant excusing someone's wrongdoing. But I was wrong. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about freeing yourself. To forgive does not mean forgetting what happened. It does not mean pretending the hurt did not exist. It simply means choosing to no longer let that pain have power over you. It means deciding that your peace is more important than your pride. I have seen people in their final days still holding on to old wounds, still replaying the same painful memories in their minds. And I have seen others who made the choice to let go, to release the burden of resentment, and in doing so, they found a lightness, a freedom that no amount of anger could ever provide. If you are carrying pain, if there is someone in your life you have not spoken to because of an old wound, I urge you, let it go. Say the words you have been holding back. Pick up the phone before it is too late. Not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. I once believed that forgiveness was something you gave to someone else. But now, I understand. It is a gift you give to yourself. Do not wait until time has stolen your chance. Set down the weight. Let yourself be free. 7. Every day is a gift. Don't waste it. One morning at the nursing home, I woke up to find that a man I had spoken to the night before had passed away in his sleep. Just hours earlier, he had laughed over dinner, recalling stories from his youth. He had no idea that it would be his last meal, his last conversation, his last night in this world. The news spread through the halls like a quiet wave, a sobering reminder that life does not give warnings. It simply moves forward, whether we are ready or not. I sat by my window that morning, staring out at the trees swaying gently in the wind, and I thought about all the time I had wasted in my own life. Time spent worrying about things that never truly mattered. Time spent waiting for the right moment to do something I wanted. Time spent holding back words of love, thinking I would always have another chance to say them. But time is unforgiving. Once it is gone, it does not return. I have seen too many people in their final days filled with regret, not for what they did, but for what they never had the courage to do, the love they never expressed, the risks they never took, the dreams they never pursued because they always thought there would be more time, and then, suddenly, there wasn't. For so much of my life, I postponed happiness. I told myself that once things settled down, once I had achieved this or that, once I felt more secure, then I would truly start living. But now I see the truth. Life is happening now. It is not waiting for us to be ready. It does not pause for our worries or hesitations. It moves forward whether we embrace it or not. So many of us spend our years preparing for a future that may never come. We sacrifice the present for the sake of stability, for the illusion of control. But in the end, what will matter is not how well we planned, but how well we lived. Did we love fully? Did we embrace joy when it was offered? Did we take the time to notice the beauty in ordinary moments? If I could go back, I would tell my younger self to stop waiting, to make the phone call, to take the trip, to say I love you without hesitation. I would remind myself that no day is promised, and the greatest tragedy is not death itself, but a life that was only half lived. So if you are reading this, let this be your wake-up call. Do not wait for the perfect moment. It does not exist. The time to live is now. Say the words. Take the leap. Love without fear. Because when your time comes, and it will, you will not regret what you did. You will only regret the moments you let slip away. Live fully, love deeply, and make every moment count. Aging is not just about the passage of time. It is about what we choose to do with the years we are given. I used to think that growing old was something that happened slowly, something I would have time to prepare for. But the truth is, one day, you simply wake up and realize that the years you thought you had stretched out before you are now behind you. The future is no longer an endless horizon, but a narrow road with fewer steps left to take. I have spent many quiet nights reflecting on the life I have lived. I have thought about the choices I made, the lessons I learned too late, the things I once believed were important that no longer matter, and the things I took for granted that now mean everything. If there is one thing I have come to understand, it is this: life is not measured by how many years we live, but by how we live them. I have met people who have no regrets, who have lived boldly and loved deeply, who have given more than they have taken and embraced life for all that it is, messy, unpredictable, fleeting. And I have met those who sit in their final days with sorrow in their eyes, wishing they had lived differently, wishing they had not wasted so much time chasing things that never truly mattered. Looking back, I realized that the most important things were not the successes or failures, not the things I owned or the accomplishments I once thought defined me. It was the people I loved, the kindness I gave, the simple joys I allowed myself to experience. It was the laughter shared around the dinner table, the warmth of a hug from someone who truly cared, the moments of quiet gratitude for simply being alive. If I could give just one piece of advice to those who still have time, it would be this: do not wait to live. Do not wait to say the things that need to be said, to repair broken relationships, to embrace happiness when it is within your reach. Do not let pride, fear, or hesitation keep you from experiencing all that life has to offer. The biggest lie we tell ourselves is that we have more time, that someday we will get around to the things that truly matter. But someday is not promised. All we have is today. If you still have your health, cherish it. If you still have people who love you, appreciate them. If you still have the ability to move, to dream, to create, to love, do not waste it. One day, you will sit where I am now, looking back on the life you have lived. And when that moment comes, I hope you can smile, knowing that you embraced every moment, that you gave more love than you held back, that you did not let fear or regret steal your time. Because in the end, when all is said and done, life is not about how much we had, but how much we gave. It is not about how long we lived, but how well we loved. And if you can look back and know that you truly lived, then no matter how many years you were given, you will know that you made them count. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.